Hello, Stuart, and welcome to the Rise of the COO podcast.
Hi, Mandy. Thank you for having me here today.
It's great to have you here. We love to explore in this podcast that fascinating role of the COO, which we class as one of the most complex and interesting roles in business today. So really looking forward to hearing your insights.
Yeah, me too.
Now, today's hot topic is COOs as translators, by which we don't mean necessarily the language of the COO, but the ideas. How to take those ideas and translate them both into the boardroom and into the exec board, as well as to the front line. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of your experiences in that space. Before we deep dive into all of that, of course, it'd be wonderful to hear a little bit about your career journey, which I know is slightly atypical, different to the typical COO. So let's pause there and perhaps let you give us an insight into that.
Well, yeah, it'll take the whole time if I talk about everything that I've done. But so now I'm the COO for UK and Ireland for Dentsu, which is a marketing communications business. But I've done so many roles beforehand. So started off at Rolls-Royce Aerospace, working out how to do global logistics to make an engine in 40 days. Then moved into kind of the marketing communications business, the agency side, where actually my very first job was being Alexander Orlov, if you remember, from Compared the Market on Twitter when Twitter was Twitter. But I've kind of done so many roles as a digital strategist, really sort of helping both people within the agency and also clients understand about this new world of digital as it was back then, when banners were a new thing. But then I kind of moved around, had sort of client leadership roles. I moved to the States and helped set up an innovation business, helping the likes of Google and Pernod Ricard do innovation labs around sort of marketing. I did consultancy for quite a while. There's actually a clear ice machine out there in the market that's reasonably priced that I helped put there. I was for product development, but then moved back to the UK, and that's kind of when I started doing sort of more kind of operations roles, I would say. So I did kind of global operations for global clients for a large network, which was one about understanding what we did everywhere in the world, but also what our business needed to look like in the future, and then developing the products and services that we would help support our clients with into the future. Then into sort of transforming sort of agency sets to deliver against sort of that vision, and then finally sort of into this role of CEO. So not a traditional journey, but a fun one, I would say.
Sounds very fun. Now, I'm trying not to be alarmed about an engine being created in 40 days, but I obviously know that you've lived abroad, so you've got onto those planes yourself, so I'm going to feel very relaxed about that. So obviously today's topic is about COOs as translators. What does that mean to you in practice?
Oh, it's such a broad job. And I think, in operations, we sort of run the business, grow it, transform it, and then govern it. So, it's such a broad spectrum. And for many of us, it's all of the business functions, it's any of the business units, so everyone's quite different. So I think our first job is, as kind of like the Babel fish. It is being able to understand the language, and it is nuanced language. Finance does talk quite differently to HR, and in the creative industries that I'm in, the media folk talk quite different to the technology platform developers. So it's being understanding what they're trying to say, and then being able to sort of translate that for yourself and them. Yes. So that's kind of part one. And then the other one, perhaps even more important, is how do you take the vision, the ideas, and translate them into sort of operational strategies that then land the plane? That means that we are doing the things we want to do, hitting the impact we want to make in a way that everyone can understand, and then translating that back to, the executives so they can understand how their vision is coming to life.
And have you got some examples where that's worked really well?
Oh, I would hope so.
I know you will have, of course, though.
So, do you know what? I think connected to my current role, there was a big time where there was 9 different business units and we're having to bring them into one. And that's ways of working, it's brands, it's cultures. And really it was trying to understand everybody's perspective in that, but then creating something new that they could all get behind and roll out as a business. So I think kind of took about 2 years. These aren't short activities. Transformation never is. That's one of probably the more recent ones.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear. And that time period of 2 years, I think that's where often people wonder, is it going to happen, and lose patience. And I think holding that patience in your particular role as COO is so important to keep people motivated, keep them believing in the end result, the end North Star that's been set as well.
I'm also like reasonably impatient as well. So, there's a bit of both.
Yeah. Now, the COO is often seen as a technical or process heavy role.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about how you bring both personality and authenticity into it.
Oh, that's a good question. I think do you know what, for me, first of all, be a person, not the role.
Yeah.
No one really cares that you're COO.
Yes.
Like, they care that you're Stu. So, and there is
I'm sure you care.
But, it's when they're coming to you,
Yes.
like, there's always something, it's like nervousness if you're perhaps a little bit more senior. It's just making people feel comfortable. So that's a big part of what I try and spend my time doing, especially when I'm meeting people for the first time, is, pour the tea.
Yes.
Just make people feel sort of comfortable within it. And also, I think the other bit that I try and do is like tell stories.
Yeah.
I think, I grew up in the communications business. So it is telling stories so people can connect with what you're saying and, share a little bit about yourself. This is where I've done something that's kind of gone well.
Yes.
This is where I've done something that's not gone so well. And so when you're human. And I think the more you can do that will connect with people sort of more so than, your ability to sort new processes or transform a part of a business.
Yeah, storytelling is such a key part of business today that, in my experience with so many organisations I walk into, I see that as one of the missing bridges with where organisations are trying to get to and to really connect with their people. Now, you gave us a wonderful story about where it has worked. Oh, no. I would love to just hear a few examples perhaps of where has it not worked as planned or intended in terms of bringing people on board.
Oh, so I have a pivotal story, I think, sort of in my career, where it was in a previous company, and I was running a sort of business development opportunity, and it was across about 15 markets in LATAM. It was working for multiple brands, and it was bringing together sort of data and media for a sort of future-facing CRM program.
Yes.
Like big thinking, really exciting, lots of people involved, and I was leading it. And we got to this point where we're trying to develop the solution, and I was trying to sell my solution to the rest of my own organisation, and it just wasn't landing.
Right.
And I was getting frustrated that it wasn't landing, because I knew I was right. And we had this meeting, and it just ended in nothing, and everyone walked out, and like the pitch is in a few days, and I was like, we've got nothing to present. And my boss just sat me down and was like, being right doesn't always matter.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, fair. And it's like, you need to understand what their personal motivations are, because these are people that run their own agencies, their own parts of the business. They've got their personal motivations as well as their business ones, and you need to appreciate that. And go get some sleep, because you're clearly tired. And I think there's a really humbling moment there when you're like, okay, actually, I can only be, a great translator, communicator, leader when I'm at my best. So, making sure that I'm looking after myself and get the rest so I can show up in my best way is really important. And also, it's not just about what you do, it's how you do it and how people react to it. And that's the real trigger for me. There's a real sort of change in my approach to like translating and sort of bringing people together in the future.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll just deep dive into that for a moment, because there's something really interesting about the moment you hear some of that feedback and then how long it takes to process and then make the change that I think our audience might find interesting, if you're happy to share.
Of course. It always hits like a bullet.
Yeah.
Feedback, when you're like, you didn't do so well there, especially when you've done kind of okay in my career, and you're like, oh, I do have to reflect.
Yes.
And so I took a moment, I take myself out. But there's actually something I've had a coach for a very long time, and sort of I've like called the coach, and so I've just talked through it. I process via talking. So and I had to do it quickly. In that particular instance, we were pitching in a few days.
Yes. So
I had to do it quickly, and so I spoke to the coach and kind of just realised I had to be really humble. And I had to go back to that group of people and kind of like, hands up.
Yeah.
I wasn't great then. Should we start again?
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of made the switch, and it had to be quick.
Mm.
I mean, it's not always like that.
Yeah.
Something you take a bit more time to process. That was a moment in time I had to be quick. But it's something I always try to do relatively quickly, because you have to pivot.
Yes.
Like this worked, didn't work. Therefore, we have to do something else. So I try to make those decisions, that processing relatively quick, so you can start progressing again.
Well, I love how that's obviously stayed with you since that moment. And certainly my interactions with you, I can see how well you translate across different audiences and teams. And maybe we'll touch on that for a moment. You mentioned earlier, engaging with finance is very different to engaging with tech, because their language can be quite different and very linked to their functional area. I'd love to just hear a little bit about how do you translate and talk to different audiences? How do you adapt your style and narrative for them?
Style, I'd say, was pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I normally try and use quite simple language.
Yeah.
I'm a simple fellow, and I try and talk to everybody the same. And the personality, my kind of leadership team get from me is the same as, my operations team get, or any other person in the business. I think there is the focus within the messaging changes. So sitting in the boardroom, I get 15 minutes max.
Yes.
You have to be tight. It's a tight 15. I got to describe whatever I'm talking about, how does that translate to our overall strategy and help deliver it? What KPIs am I hitting? For the people I know need to make the decisions, how is it going to impact them? It's really, really, really pointed. I think with sort of my own team, they're normally longer conversations. I have more time with them. I explain the rationale a lot more, because I think they need to understand it to be able to activate it. And then with other sort of wider departments, technology and IT sort of falls into my wider remit. It's trying to translate into them. Okay, what's going to be important to you? What are your KPIs? How is this going to help meet those? What's your perspective on this? And then kind of asking them a lot of questions, so I can help answer those questions and understand how I'm going to deliver against whatever project or initiative it is.
That's true. Your role is so busy. There's something going on in every moment of every day, both from the market, within your own business. How do you carve out the time to find the time to think about those messages for those audiences? Where do you find time for you to get the job right?
It's planned. I'm in operations. I make time before every session I'm going into. I don't mean right before, normally a little bit in advance if I can, a day or so, to be like, what do I need from them and what do they need from me?
Yes.
And the latter is normally probably the most important bit. And so I'm showing up with the information or perspective that I think people are going to want, and you just have to make time for it.
Yeah.
And be that, within the commute, in the morning, or actually carving out time in my calendar to be like, that is when I'm doing my thinking time. I also, every week, Friday mornings, with a cup of coffee, 10 a.m., I sit down and I reflect on the week that went for half an hour, however quickly I finish my coffee. And it's religious for me, because if I don't do it, I feel out of whack the next week.
What a great discipline. Now, I heard all of the effort and energy you put into around the planning, the thinking about how to land messages well. I'm going to just ask perhaps from the other angle, which is, how do you make sure they actually have landed well?
Interesting. So, once again, depends on the audience. And I think with my team, it's a broad, many operations, it's a broad team. The property versus business operations, technology, quite different. They want different things. I think I spend the time to discuss the strategy. I was like, this is what our overall business is doing, and this is your role within it. So I do that at the beginning. Actually, did it in December for the beginning of this year. But every year, so everyone knows their role and whatever we're trying to achieve. And I really asked them to go write their own delivery plans for it. And so I enable them to go what does this mean for me? And then I make sure they review it all together. So it's just not me reviewing it. It has to work across all parts of operations. And then I ensure that they do it with the business unit they're working for or supporting, or one of the other sort of business functions. And I think it's that collaboration. I think that's what operations is. It's collaborations. It's the glue amongst everybody. So to land the message, it's more about the conversations, spending time together, and making sure that they are spending the time to think about what other people want from them. We're here in service of the business. I think that's their role.
Now, your skills and gift in being such a great translator has a huge impact on your organisation. But it's a big organisation. You've touched on there just how you really think about your teams and you empower them. How do you upskill them to be as good translators as you are, so that once you've done the messaging, it's reinforced through the rest of the organisation through your teams?
I love coming on this podcast. So many compliments. So thank you. Look, I think there is you spend time with people. So, and I think it goes back to empowering them.
Yes.
If they really understand what their plans are and how that works for the rest of the business, because of the conversations they're having, they're already equipped to be able to understand what other people want.
Yeah.
And it's so, one is just enabling spending time with each other, and different departments, different areas. But also, I actually spend quite a bit of time with, my HR partner, working out what type of training do sort of individuals need and what do they collectively need. And for me, it's things like negotiation.
Yes.
A lot of it is what actually is negotiating. It's what does influence look like in the business. Yes, there are technical skills that they'll need, but those what are often seen as softer skills are the ones that, and I spend a lot of time really making sure they've got the right training and additional support on to make sure that they can weave those into what, like you said, is a complex business and a complex role to run within the business.
I think that's so important. That soft skills is such a key focus and feature, particularly with how fast technology is moving, how fast AI is moving as well. Now, if you were to give some advice to a future aspiring COO, what would that be?
So I always give the same advice.
Okay.
And first is, do not listen to me.
Okay, all right.
Listen to yourself. And I think, look, in operations mean so many different things to different businesses or people. So it's about showing up with your, what's your superpower or superpowers? And the best way to get those is to really under yourself. So what I talked about earlier about the coach, I've had one for years. They're varied, but if you can get your business to pay for one, great. If you can afford it and the business won't pay, do invest in yourself. Because if you can work out what your superpower is, you can take that anywhere. And that doesn't matter if, you've got a strategic operation role, or you've got quite a structured process orientated one, or if it's a small business or a large business, you will show up in your best possible way.
Great. I love that. And I love that the power to become a COO is so much in the gift of really unlocking your superpower there as well. I think that's such a lost piece of advice or lost idea within people. There's often such a desire to impart rather than understand how do you unlock the talent from within that might already exist in someone.
Do you know, I was never going to be a COO. I didn't know what I was going to be, but I was going to be someone in business, but my sort of strange and meandering career, I picked up skills that, that works quite well for operations.
Yes.
And there was actually a coach that eventually said, have you ever considered this?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll go try it out. And, and now I was like, this is my home. This is where I should be. This is where I can thrive. So don't have a destination in mind. Just, kind of have a general career and make it fun.
Yes.
I enjoy doing this.
Yeah,
and it's not always enjoyable, but I enjoy it. And so I think you have to do the things that you enjoy and find what you're really good at, and then you can go be brilliant.
Great. Stuart, what an incredible conversation today. I've just loved spending time with you for so many different reasons, both the insights that you've imparted, but actually just the human way in which you operate as a COO, from the pouring the tea. I'm going to hold on to that and look around for all the people that are pouring the tea, because it will tell me something about them, through to everything that's actually equipped you to have the role today and the way you translate across your organisation. It's really wonderful to see, and it's been absolutely fascinating to hear both your experiences, both the good and the bad, and what you've learned, but also the confidence you've just given to anyone out there who's an aspiring COO in terms of how to think about their own talent from within and to enjoy the journey along the way as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Time flies quickly on these, but it's been a fantastic conversation and I've really enjoyed our time together, and perhaps I'll help pour some coffee for you as well.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.